record rainfalls and flash flooding, and it's not quite over yet. There's a little more work to do before this finally gets out of the way, as this impressive weather system brought some rather phenomenal amounts of rain to parts of the Northeast. And we'll talk about that, and we'll look at the weekend, which has some hope, and we'll look ahead to next week in the long range. And that's on this special Friday night Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County. If you find out your sump pump's not working, well, you got to head over there. And, of course, they've got the usual with mulch, topsoil, sand, and salt this coming winter. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And it would have been handy if you had a Tempest by WeatherFlow weather station. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you make any purchases on the Tempest by WeatherFlow website, be it this or any of the other gadgets, gizmos, and smart weather fashion, use the coupon code I want a weather station. Because if you do, you get
10% off.
Yes, you do. And good evening to everybody on the chat board. Those of you who swam over to get to watch the show tonight. Boy, Joe, this was big. This was big. And the thing is, we're always, most weather people, certainly weather enthusiasts, are always focusing on, the deep lows and the intense lows that develop and the tropical storms and hurricanes. And here we have this inverted trough, hardly a low attached to it, and voila, you get utterly hammered with rainfall amounts.
Joe, what really amazes me is that if you had come to us 3 or 4 days ago and talked about the end of the week and the start of the weekend, you said, well, all right, well, there's going to be some rain or showers, probably for the coast, inland areas. You might get a glancing blowing. And in a matter of just 2 or 3 days, this evolved into, well, let's put it another way. This is the wettest day in the history of JFK. At one time, it was Idlewild Airport. They have records going back to 1948.
Right.
And yesterday at Central Park, we were not yet within the top 10 in terms of all-time wettest Septembers. And now, 24 hours later, we're at number 2 on that list.
Right. I saw. I was looking at the OBS, so I sort of was adding up the numbers. They had 5.77 inches as of, I believe it was 2 o'clock. So just waiting to see what the last what the last bunch of hours have added to that. Yeah, Central Park. And number 2, 16 inches. Isn't the record for September's like 16 inches and change?
Yeah. I think now, for this being the second wettest September, and remember that the records go all the way back to 1869. So we're talking a pretty significant record. I mean, it's number 2, but still, I think now that they're at 12 point something. You have to pardon me that I didn't have the chance to write everything down, but it's an amazing day in terms of precipitation here in not just the Northeast, but in the New York City metropolitan area.
Oh, yeah. Gold Spawn, Joe, hits the Super Chat tip jar in a big way. And so thanks also to Ken Musillo hitting the Super Chat tip jar. Thank you to both, and to Gold Spawn. He says, y'all the best. Love the show. Thank you, Gold Spawn. Spread the word, because we're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., and tonight, usually we take Friday and Saturday off, but it was definitely worth doing a Friday night show. However, just to let everybody know, we are taking a 3-day weekend. So after tonight, we will not be back until Tuesday. Okay? So Mark it down. Because there's nothing going to be happening. No surprise inverted troughs or anything like that. Nothing's
We
going to be
hope.
happening. We hope. And yeah, so Tuesday will be the next show. Now I was looking at some of these rainfall totals. So Nassau County on Long Island got hit pretty hard, and it's always important, by the way, when you read these totals, make sure you check the timestamp on them because uh, sometimes, like for example, Carl Place, 3.81 inches, but the timestamp there is 2:20 p.m. So there's and meanwhile, a bunch of other stations are 4:15, 4:20, 4:25, and so on. So sometimes the numbers kind of look out of whack. You really have to wait till the final numbers are in to get a solid comparison from place to place. Just looking at some numbers here. Valley Stream 7.61, and that's not far from Kennedy at all. East Rockaway 6.37. Great Neck on the North Shore 6.28. Hewlett 6.26. Levittown 4.78, and that was as of 4:20. Now in New York City proper, in Kings County, which is AKA Brooklyn, 7.21. Now it says Brooklyn, so I'm not exactly where in Brooklyn that 7.21 is. South Slope is 7.18. Prospect Park 6.66. Again, these numbers are not final numbers. Sheepshead Bay 555. In New Jersey, Union County, Joe, Newark 1.77. So there was a sharp cutoff just west of New York City where the rains really kind of tapered off in terms of amounts. 1.77 there. Union County, which is in Union County, 1.58. Meanwhile, 9 miles south of Wayne in Passaic County, 3.28. In Hoboken, 3.48. In West Caldwell, 3.12. In Bergen County, Franklin Lakes 3.64, Ridgeport 3.08. I mean, these are sizable amounts, but they weren't the crazy numbers. And right now, Connecticut's getting hit very hard. So some of these numbers are going to go up. 504 in Greenwich, 4.5 in Stamford, 3.96 in Norwalk. Further east, Waterbury 3.58, Wolcott 2.29, Bethany 1.49, New London at 2.48. But there's still there's stuff to the east now. So I mean, these numbers were. These numbers, I'm going to be interested to see what the final totals are because there's still going to be some rain overnight and into the first part of tomorrow morning because there's going to be a little bit of back edging that's going to probably try to drop southward and southeastward. It shouldn't be anything like we saw in some of the torrential downpours today, but it's going to add to these totals. And yeah, there's going to be more records that are going to go by the boards with this.
Well, first of all, a little while ago, I heard from one of the people on our chat board, Quiet John, and he says that his rain gauge, and he lives in Mineola, actually, and his rain gauge got overwhelmed. He said over 7 inches where he was. And Joe, the thing that we had Bill Goodman on last night, the National Weather Service put out a flash flood watch. And in the discussion, they said 2 to 4 inches with some isolated spots, possibly getting 5 or more.
Right.
And that turned out to be a pretty damn good forecast. 5 or more. I mean, I'm glad that they left it open ended because, indeed, as what we've seen at JFK and Mineola and other places, they certainly got more than 5. They in fact got 6, 7, even more than 8. So it was an incredible day. But most areas, 2 to 4 inches, that pretty much fit. Up here in Putnam Valley, I got 3.1 inches of rain. However, most of that fell from 9 o'clock in the morning until noontime, which is why when you get rain coming down that heavily or that hard, that once again, I had some problems and a bit of basement flooding again, which is why I'm up here and not downstairs. But we will. This is not cataclysmic. We will get through this.
Right.
We've got a number of nice, dry, pleasant, fair, sunny days coming up to dry out.
Leon Probitsky 3.5 inches in the Lindenhurst backyard. Putting that up on the chat board. Thank you, Leon, and I know a number of you, those of you who put your numbers up on the board. Ken Musillo, a little over 7 inches where he is in North Queens. So we do appreciate it. Janet Dunn, 2.54 in Westwood/Bergen County. Thank you, Janet. And I'm just kind of running through this. So Rich Rothmansky, 8.6. Oh, yeah, I guess that's the Kennedy total so far, 8.67, breaking the old record of 5.83. Thank you for that, Rich. And let's see any other numbers. If I miss you, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of scrolling through the chat here. So if I do miss you, I apologize, but definitely do appreciate you folks leaving the numbers. Now, I'm going to bring up the OKX radar because this line, I'm going to see if I could. I'm going to put this up. I'm going to see if I can get the UCAR one up in a moment so we could look at it from a loop standpoint. But that area of yellow with patches of red. First off, Joe, when I saw this afternoon, because I was down in Marietta today. So I drove back, and it took me a little over 2 hours and 15 minutes to get back to the house. And the first thing I did was I popped up the OKX radar, and I mean, it looked like there was this squall line of heavy thunderstorms that were literally creeping across western Long Island and pushing eastward. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, there's got to be some lightning and thunder out of this. And sure enough, a few people, did message me that they indeed had lightning, thunder, and even some wind with this. The green box you see is the current flash flood warning that's up for central Suffolk County, and they're getting hit pretty hard. You can see the heavier cells now. They're also offshore in that streak of red. And over the state of Connecticut, it's like moderate to heavy rain covering most of the state except for the corners. So they're getting Hartford, Torrington, Waterbury, all those places at the moment, based on this radar, are getting clobbered. It looks like the heavy rain is just getting ready to slowly pull out of Bridgeport, but then it kind of snakes over Long Island Sound, and you see it there in west central Suffolk County and into central Suffolk County, some very heavy rains. It looks like some thunderstorms maybe touching the south shore on the eastern part of Fire Island, and those are, the cells are moving north, and the area is only crawling to the east. And this was something. It really was. This was really something.
You could see the western edge of that big blotch of orange and yellow that covers a good part of Connecticut. The western edge looks like it's actually trying to back in from the east into portions of
Dutchess,
of Putnam, northeastern Putnam, and also Dutchess County. So that it ain't over yet. It
no.
Ain't over.
Well, that may very well happen. You may actually see you're probably going to see the intensity of the rainfall weaken, but you will probably have an arc of rain that'll back westward during the overnight hours, because this inverted trough has to start sliding east and southeast. So some of it may come back in during the overnight. Don't be shocked. And in fact, WPC, starting at 8 o'clock tonight on their rainfall forecast, is indicating an additional 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch back into eastern New Jersey and over the Hudson Valley. And there's a patch there of 1 inch to 1.5 inches and a couple of little purple spots there in Connecticut, respecting what is going on the radar right now. I'm certainly pretty confident that they're going to see that. Getting hits on the tip jar tonight. Thank you very much. The chairman, Scott Briller. Thank you, Scott. He says, hey, weather family, this was the 5th greatest single-day rainfall at Central Park history, taking Mother Briller to Wildwood this weekend. Good place to go because they don't have much to worry about as far as rain is concerned.
And consider that, all respect to Mother Briller and going to Wildwood this weekend, but consider what Scott just wrote. The 5th greatest single-day rainfall in the history of Central Park.
Right.
And again, those records go back to 1869. Now, how many, multiply 365 by, let's say, 150, you get an enormous number. I don't have my calculator in front of me, but out of all of that, this was number 5 on
Right.
the top list of single day rainfalls. Incredible, absolutely incredible. And as a meteorologist, as a forecaster, I will openly admit I didn't see this coming 3 days ago or 4 days ago. I thought we would just get, a little rain, maybe some heavier rain down across the coastal plain. If you had told me 3 or 4 days ago this was going to be the result, I would have looked at you and said, "What are you drinking or something?" It's incredible. It's unbelievable.
No tropical depression here. This was a non-tropical system. Granted, the time of year allows it to tap some rather rich Atlantic tropical moisture and subtropical moisture, which certainly got involved. And
Lee Goldberg, in fact, mentioned on one of his weathercasts tonight. He said that the tropical moisture had some of Ophelia's DNA.
yeah, I mean, does that matter? Honestly, does that really matter? Because
Well,
I don't believe it does. I don't think it adds. Look, here's the thing: if we could make a case and say that Ophelia's remnants were not in this, we still would have had what we got. You know, it's not like we're getting more. I'm sorry. It just to me it's such a non-issue with this. I don't really think that that Ophelia's remnants somehow perpetrated all of this. The inverted trough did all the work. Maybe there was a tropical feed, the same non-tropical system. Remember, Ophelia started off as a non-tropical system. The same the same frontal boundary. We've had a frontal boundary sitting offshore all week long. So if Ophelia didn't become a tropical storm, we still would have gotten what we would have gotten.
well,
In my, to me, it's just like, okay, big deal. If you want to say that Ophelia was part of this, I guess so. I just don't think it's important.
well, I did a little tour this afternoon of the local weathercast, and I will say that among all of them, I thought that ABC 7 had by far and away the best coverage. They had all of their entire weather team, starting with Lee Goldberg everybody was out there and providing latest updates. And other stations, yeah, they were providing updates too. But I mean, at one point, it kind of reminded me what ABC was doing, that what we used to do at News 12, where we had a situation like this, a major weather situation, and all of a sudden, the decision from on high, from King Pat, Mr. Dolan, saying, "All right, we're going live. We're going wall to wall live coverage until this disaster comes
Right.
to an end,
And order the pizza.
and then order the pizza." Yeah,
Order the pizza.
that's the one thing
Um,
I miss. That's the one thing I miss about not being involved with stuff like this, Joe, is, you go into the newsroom and you see like 14 boxes of pizza, just,
I know.
you know,
Well, the camaraderie. It was fun. I miss it too. I miss the camaraderie. But
yep,
we're still doing it. We're still here. We have camaraderie, you and I.
yes.
Leon, let me just acknowledge the super chat hits again, some more. Leon Probitsky hitting the tip jar. Thank you, Leon, very much. Joe Arabia, thank you for the super chat hit. Most appreciated. And Golden Spawn, thank you again for hitting the tip jar. That's a double hit and extremely generous. Thank you so much.
Gold spawn, Joe, not golden.
I'm sorry, Gold Spawn. I'm Spawn.
Right.
Okay, I know it's been a long
I mean,
day.
but the amount that he hit the tip jar with was certainly golden.
Golden, yes, oh, absolutely. So anyway, this is what WPC is doing, and you'll notice, by the way, since we've got the map up, a lot of rain in Texas over the next 7 days. That's a lot. A lot of this area was very dry this summer, so that's much helpful. The northern plains seeing anywhere from a half an inch to as much as an inch and a half plus. Some stuff in the northern Rockies and a little bit of a break in the Pacific Northwest. Let me see if I can get that UCAR. Oh, good. It's all there from the last time I was there. So while it loads, there it goes. So so this is the current radar view. I'm going to go, let's see if I can get back to the home page. Let's go to a 5-hour loop, most recent and today. Um, I'll do composite reflectivity because that usually makes it look even worse than it already is.
Yeah.
So we'll let that load up. And
I might point out 3 o'clock this morning, 3:30, I woke up and actually came in and looked at the radar. And first of all, we only had where I was, my rain gauge was only showing 0.11 inches at that early hour of the morning. And I looked at the radar, and all of the heavy duty stuff was moving from south to northeast. It was literally, Joe, just to my east. And I'm saying to myself, is it possible that I might possibly miss out on the really heavy duty amounts here, and everything is going to fall just off to my east? I went to bed and slept soundly, but I was awakened rudely this morning by the rain coming on down hard. I mean, when it comes down hard where I am, you could actually hear it. And when I heard that sound, I just wanted to go and roll over and go right back to sleep. But I knew what was happening downstairs in my basement office, and it's been one thing after another ever since, which is why I'm up here tonight. So
here's an 8-hour loop. And you look at how that line forms over western Long Island, extending down off the New Jersey shore, and just really look at that. That's impressive. I mean, that really is impressive, as it is, just literally crawling eastward. And then you can also watch the big area of heavy rain growing over the state of Connecticut. We also have some rains, by the way, that have made it up into New Hampshire and Vermont, but nothing like what's going on further south. David Schwartz points out, and it just occurred to me that they had to cancel the hockey game tonight. Which was the Rangers Islanders tonight?
it had to be an exhibition game, and it must have been either at Madison Square Garden or maybe at the
new place.
the new facility.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the. I mean, I can't recall them canceling a hockey game because of rain. That's a new one.
Governor Hochul has issued a state of emergency in New York. So, with that, I suppose that's worthy of closing a lot of places tonight that normally would not otherwise close, except maybe for the Broadway plays, which never seem to close.
Sure. Anthony Sparaccio hitting the super chat tip jar. Thank you, Anthony, and most appreciated. Like I said, last night. I guess we get to look at the stuff that's on the right side of the menu tonight. 86 likes. Thank you much. If you like the show, hit the like button because Joe and I love it when we get over 100 likes. It makes us feel good. So this is our loaded radar, and as I said, we probably have some more work to do. Here's the wide view, so you can sort of get a good picture of what's happening here in the Northeast. And you had to be inside this zone because this was not something that was widespread, that dumped heavy rains across Virginia and Maryland and Delaware and all of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. I mean, you literally, if you look at it, you could draw one line. In fact, I'll do it. Let me just get the artwork, the artist work here. So let me make that a little lower, and we'll do that. And I mean, basically here's one side of it, okay. And now here's another side of it. And if you're inside that column, and notice that most of the rain is moving northeastward, so there's not a big easterly component to this. So it takes a long time for that heavy rain band to move on through, and you get absolutely clobbered if you're underneath that.
And I just noticed that Quiet John has hit the tip jar for the second consecutive night, Joe. And we mentioned earlier in the show that he sent a message to me saying that his rain gauge was almost completely put out of commission because he got over 7 inches in and around the Mineola area. So we thank you, Quiet John. We're glad that you're not too waterlogged to not watch the show tonight. We're always happy when you're there, and thank you again for hitting super chat.
Now, I've got the surface map, and I went back to, because a few people, it's like, well, we talked about this as an inverted trough, so they're saying, okay, what's an inverted trough? All right, so we oftentimes talk about troughs when we look at the upper air. So I'm going to just bring up the upper air map, and basically, when you get these dips in the jet stream like this, whoops, here we go. Let's try that. So, right here is a trough, okay? That dip in the jet stream. Here's the trough in the east with the upper low that's sitting up somewhere in northern Pennsylvania. That's another trough, all right? So an inverted trough, and we'll look at the surface, is more of a bottoms-up type system rather than a top-down, like when we look at the upper air. And in fact, it's hard, it may be a little bit hard to see on the screen. I can kind of see it on mine, but right here, WPC why did that happen? That's odd. Hold on, let me fix this. This is odd. Hold on a second. Okay, so right here, this is. All right, bear with me, folks, because the map decided to do something silly, and I'm trying
technology, ladies and gentlemen, technology.
Yes, exactly. So here's WPC. If you look carefully on this surface map, they actually drew these dashed lines running out of where the low center is, which was well east of the North Carolina coast. Well, the inverted trough, instead of having that dip that's at the bottom of the trough at the upper air, from north to south, this is the other way around. Your dip is pretty much from south to north. So there's your inverted trough. The blizzard of '79, Joe, started like this, as an inverted trough and a coastal front. That was it. And
I remember it well.
And from that, we got, wound up deepening eventually to a 970 something low, a 972 low. I mean, it was a totally different scenario. It was in the middle of winter, but the bottom line is that it did what it did. And that inverted trough, if we go to the latest map, you'll notice on the 21Z, that inverted trough is actually, they've got it drawn where it cuts across Long Island and then runs right along the New Jersey shore back into that low that really hasn't moved very much off the North Carolina coast. But the point is that when you look at this and then you match it up with the radar, that band of heavy heavy downpours and thunderstorms that we saw cutting across Long Island and moving up into Connecticut, extending down from the New Jersey shore, lies right along the axis of that inverted trough. And sometimes the surface lows here will eventually intensify. In fact, Bill Goodman talked about this last night in terms of a Norland trough, which we have those in the wintertime, where you get these arms from storms that come around from the east, and sometimes they bring surprise snowfalls, particularly to coastal areas. We've seen that happen a few times.
Right. December 1988 over Long Island. That's the one that stands out. And remember, back in December of '88, there was hardly anybody who knew what a Norland trough was. But after experiencing a few of those over the years, it acquired a name. I guess the gentleman who wrote a paper on it was named Norland, or I'm guessing that. But now we instantly, when we see a setup like that in the winter, we immediately recognize that and say, "Uh-oh, there's a problem."
Yes.
And that was the storm in December of '88 where, forecasters like Tom Grant at the National Weather Service had no clue what was happening. And in his statement, he said, "We've all been reduced to just observers. We have no clue how to forecast something like this. We're just sitting here and watching what's happening." So that's a Norland trough, friends. And that was in the wintertime, and you saw what a Norland trough could do if all the cards fall into place in the late summer or early fall today.
Brandon Doherty also hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Brandon. And he says, does this kind of trough occlude? No, the trough doesn't the fronts are out with where the low center is. It's the way the isobars are pinched back to the northwest like an upside down V. Okay, that is the axis, I should say, not access, but axis. See, the isobars are kind of shaped in a V-shaped upside down. So your inverted trough lies just like that. And sometimes you'll get the surface lows will eventually become more symmetrical and they'll start to deepen, and that trough may disappear, or it could just sort of stay like that, and the trough will eventually pivot back to the west and southwest, which is what it does in the wintertime. So it's you always learn something new around here, and that's not just that's for us, Joe and I. In all the years of experience, there's always at least one or two systems a year that we look at and we say, well, that's a new one on us. And I think we could say that this one was a new one on us.
Absolutely. And it also puts those TV stations that give you a 10-day outlook to shame. In fact, this put to shame the stations that give you a 7-day outlook. Because like I said, up until about a week ago, or 4 or 5 days ago, this was not on the radar. This was not something. 4 or 5 days ago, we were saying, yeah, at the end of the week, there'll be some kind of a system, an upper level system, perhaps surface low offshore interacting, and it may provide us with some showers along the coastal plain, inland, maybe a glancing blow. No big deal. And here we are now on Friday night, September 29, talking about literally a historic rainfall for the immediate New York City metropolitan area. And Joe's right. Joe's absolutely right. If you talk, this is not a northeastern weather event. If you're up in Boston, if you were down in Philadelphia or Baltimore, they're looking like they're on the sidelines, so to speak, looking at us, because we're the ones who got hammered. They didn't, or if they did, they got only a fraction of what we received here in the New York metropolitan area.
The chairman, Scott Briller, hit super chat for Mother Briller. Thank you so much, Scott. Have a good time in Wildwood. The weather's fine down there. You'll be okay. And Rich Rothmansky, who is one of our regulars here, from this meteorologist to both you meteorologists. Always a good show. Thank you, Rich. Most appreciated. All of the tip jar hits tonight are definitely very much appreciated. So let's roll along here, shall we?
Surely.
And take a look at where we're going in the long range, because, Joe, there's some interesting things that are happening. And, of course, this upper low that is sitting over us tonight, I mean, literally, probably centered right over northern New Jersey, is going to drop southeastward offshore tomorrow. You've got a deep trough dropping down in the west and a ridge popping up between the two. And that ridge is going to kind of try to nose into the East Coast for this week. The flow in Canada for now is cut off, so it should be dry for Sunday, and I think probably through Thursday and maybe even to the beginning of Friday. But what's interesting here, and we talked about this the last couple of days, is the ridge, the trough in the west pulls out eastward, and we get ridging in the western part of the United States. And the models are all the European, the GFS. The GFS was one of the first to telegraph this idea of a pretty deep trough in the eastern part of the United States late next week. And that means a cold front. And then when the front goes by, it means some rather chilly air. I mean, that's not a shabby looking flow from northwest Canada into the southeastern part of the United States next weekend, Joe. I think it's going to mean for a shot of some real autumn air coming in into the eastern part of I would say at least the eastern half of the United States will participate in this. And over the long haul, that trough, part of it lifts out, but there seems to be a tendency here for troughs to want to be in the eastern part of the United States in the longer term. And there comes another one around mid-month that's setting up over the northern plains and western Great Lakes, and a big strong ridge going up the west coast into the Canadian Northwest. So you get a shot of chilly air that comes in and lasts for a while, and then maybe a warm up with another cold front, and then maybe another chilly air mass to follow. So looks like we're getting into, this is a real fall-like pattern that seems to be setting up once we get through this week, which should be above normal temperature-wise and mostly on the dry side.
I just know what everybody or a lot of people who are not really weather watchers or weather observers are going to be talking about next weekend, and they're going to say the following. My God, it was like near 80 degrees on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. It was so warm. It was like summertime. And now look what it's like. It's so chilly. Well, why is it that it happens on the weekend? But that's the way weather can go sometimes. And that's exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at an above normal span of 3 or 4 days, temperature wise, Monday through Thursday. And then we'll cool off big time, it looks like, for the start of the weekend, next weekend.
Leon Probitsky, a lot of people must have been working overtime this week because a few of you have hit Super Chat more than once tonight. Thank you, Leon, for hitting Super Chat a second time. Now, here's the GFS on the surface, and this was this afternoon. Didn't exactly get the heavy rain bands in the right spot, but it does have the Connecticut heavy rain band correct. And you see the bulge back that occurs overnight into tomorrow morning. Looks like, still some rain on the radar tomorrow morning in Connecticut, Long Island, southeastern New England, back to about you, and in northern New Jersey. I mean, I doubt at this point that this would be as we hope it's nothing like what we saw today, but there is a low that is now sitting well off the Delaware coast, and then that low is going to start sliding southeastward as this next high builds in. I think there's a chance that we could see some late afternoon sky improvement tomorrow. If not, certainly tomorrow night as it clears out. And then Sunday, to me, looks like a pretty nice day with high pressure building in and sunshine and temperatures into the 70s. And we just kind of sit with this high. Goes out to the east, but there's no real moist onshore flow to worry about. Here comes the next cold front, Joe, Friday, as it approaches from the west. With some showers and probably maybe even a thunderstorm or two as it goes by Friday night into early Saturday. And then behind it, some cool air. I know they're all looking at that patch of blue north of Lake Huron, so that sort of tells you that this is a cool air mass. In fact, I'll switch over to the map with the thicknesses so we could actually see. There's the 540 thickness flow, folks, and we point this out. We've mentioned it before, especially in the wintertime. That's usually where the rain snow line is, but of course it's a little early for that. It could be. Sometimes it's 546, sometimes it's 534, but it's got that 540 thickness, Joe. I'm just using it as a measure of how cool the air mass is. It gets it down to almost to southern New Jersey by Sunday evening. Yeah. And that's impressive for the 9th of October. And it sort of hangs over. Look at that. Now, I don't know who knows if this is real, but there's blue snow there, Joe, in southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire on Tuesday, October 10th. And then that goes out, and now we've got another straw. This time we got a low on the GFS that wants to take a low up from Oklahoma to the lakes around the 13th with another cold front. And while it's not really that cool behind it, to the north and west of that, there's a chilly air mass that's moved into the northern plains that's about to move eastward. So kind of a interesting autumn pattern shaping up for the longer term.
Well, I should point out that back in 1988, there was a history-making snowstorm across portions of upstate New York and New England. And in fact, I think the Berkshires, western Massachusetts, they're parts of the Berkshires that got like 20 inches of snow on that particular day. So that's something that has been known to happen this early in the season. And so to see it happen, on the 9th or 10th of October, that's pretty good. Doesn't happen very often, but we may just see some flaky weather in parts of the Northeast, as you pointed out, Joe, by the second week of October.
Here's the U.S. satellite loop. I didn't show this yet. And I love that hole in the middle. You see that hole in the clouds? That actually was sneaking up. It was like a dry slot of some kind between what's on the coast, and then you got this big gap where there's, it actually, that's a dry slot somehow in the way that inverted trough is set up. I mean, it's just really, somebody's going to write about this. At least we hope so.
Hey, people get into that sort of thing, and they like to write articles and papers. And the fun of for me, whenever I write a paper, the fun part is doing the abstract, because the abstract is the thing that hooks you, so to speak. If you can hook them with the abstract, and the abstract is kind of like, the highlights of what you'll find if you turn the page and read deeper into the paper. So, yeah, somebody might write about something like this. A little quirky little bit of meteorology here.
Meanwhile, just to check out the tropics, because we have two tropical storms, they are almost kissing each other. They're very close together. They're less than 600 miles apart. We have Tropical Storm Philippe on the left, still to the east of the Leeward Islands. It's a bit of a sheared system. If you look closely at the loop, you could. I'm going to speed this up so this way it'll run faster. Well, when all the frames are done loading, because I added a bunch of frames, 36 extra frames there. So it should start moving quick. There it is. You can actually see the low-level circulations of both systems, both Philippe and Rena, which is going north-northwestward and going over the top of Philippe. And I think what's going to probably wind up happening is that's going to eventually wind up getting absorbed by Philippe, which looks like it's the more dominant system. It does not appear that I'm going to be a threat. It's going to be sitting off the northern Leeward Islands, but eventually I think it's probably going to start. Well, Philippe is probably going to sit there all weekend pretty much in the same spot, or maybe drift southward and then eventually start to make its way northward because of everything that's going on across the United States. The setup in the Atlantic is not favorable for a system to move westward all the way across, and really hasn't been favorable for this whole hurricane season, because we've seen these storms recurving before they get to 70. So this will be no different.
We're getting a lot of buffering going around.
Yeah, I just took a little hit here. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Just probably a little bit of a internet hit going on my side of the board. It could be because I loaded those extra frames on that loop, so I'm gonna just turn it off and let's come back full screen. So here we are. All right, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add tonight. There really isn't much ahead to look ahead that's ominous. I mean, the weather is going to turn nice, and I think everyone would agree it's deservedly so that we should have some nice weather going forward. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, Joe? Just really quick, because the 8 o'clock obs are out. So at least I want to see if I can figure out New York City's rainfall totals here. So just give me a second as I punch up OKX. We still have this flash flood warning that's up for central Suffolk, parts of central Suffolk County. And by the way, if you're watching this, obviously it's coming up on 8:20 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're watching it live, that's one thing. But if you're watching this on a replay overnight, make sure you go to weather.gov to check the latest radars to see what's going on. But anyhow, let me take a look and see what kind of rainfall we have, what kind of rainfall total. So let's go to 3-day history for New York City. And so it doesn't look like they got much more. They had 600ths, Joe, as of 8 o'clock last night. Another 4,400ths at 2 in the morning. And then by 8 this morning, they picked up another 8,900. So overnight, they picked up 1.33, plus 6 is 1.39. And then from 8 to 2 o'clock, Joe, in that 6-hour period, 4.38 inches of rain in that 6-hour period.
That'll do it.
And another 900ths that fell between 2 p.m. and 8. So what did I say? 577. So they were up to 5.86. And we could check JFK because they had a record there. So it usually doesn't work if I do it from this way. I got to go back and punch it up the other way. So let's try that. JFK and JFK Airport. Just to pick up a few odds and ends here. 3-day weather history. And Kennedy. So these are the 6-hour rainfall amounts from Kennedy. 0.02, 1.26, so 1.28, 2.52, so that brings them to 380. 380 plus 344. 380 plus 344 is 724. And then another 1.43, 724. And so it looks like 8.65. Joe, 8.65 for Kennedy. And I'll do one more. Might as well check Islip because they're in the thick of it now. And they really didn't get much during the day today when I checked earlier. Islip, New York. But I'm sure they're making up for it. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. So let's try that again. Islip. 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 Oh. Oh, come on. You know, there's some quirk. The Weather Service website, there's quirks on certain pages where it does weird things. But okay, I got it here. So yeah, Islip. Islip is just to show you. You know, you were talking about if you were on outside of the main bands, and Suffolk County, particularly eastern part of Suffolk County, was for until very recently. So 84 hundredths plus 29. 84 and 29 is, what is that, 113? And they just picked up another 62. So they're at 175. And they still have that heavy rain band over Long Island. So they'll make it up in a big way in the next few hours. Okay, are we done? I think we're done.
Scott, the chairman, was asking about Briller Jeopardy, but I think we're going to hold off on that until early next week because, I'm not speaking for you, Joe, but it's been a long day for me.
Yeah.
And
no, it's been a long day for me too. I was up at 4 a.m.
Wow.
I was up at 4 a.m. getting all my weather stuff done because I had to run out for the middle part of the day. And of course, my website was not working right. So what should have taken me 15 or 20 minutes took me the better part of 2 hours. And that was that.
Well, that sounds like somebody who was trying to commute from Queens to Brooklyn today. Well, it normally takes me like 20 minutes, but it took almost 2 hours today. That was because of all the shutdowns and all the flooding and everything. You wouldn't believe some of the video, Joe, of places in and around Queens and Brooklyn and areas that got really wonked with all of that rain. I mean, like the water was, in some cases, the water was up to the passenger windows.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy weather.
Joe Arabia says 1.12 in Patchogue so far, which is not too far from MacArthur Airport. Thanks, Joe, for that number. Appreciate it. And David Schwartz, here's an interesting development, Joe, about what happened today in New York City. At Central Park had so much rain that the sea lions were able to escape their enclosure at the Central Park Zoo. Boy, that must have been fun.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, Joe. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe. You finish your thought so I can.
As I said, they must have been in their element,
Yeah. Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Link is pinned at the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you do buy something there, use the coupon code I want a weather station. Because if you do, you'll get
10% off.
Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Generators, sump pumps. If you find out they're not working tonight, you could have some trouble. 631-756-1125. They have the best prices in town. The website is
omnitruevalue.com.
All right, so when is our next show, Joe?
Tuesday, 7:35 p.m.
And
I'll be make sure
oh, you just reminded me. I was watching, before we came on, I was watching Turner Classic Movies, and they had the original silent version of the Ten Commandments.
Wow.
Which was kind of interesting, to watch. Silent movies are very, very interesting to watch in terms of the shoot, the acting, and you pay attention more to the technical stuff when you watch a silent movie. You find yourself doing that. But I just was thinking that the one thing that the movie was missing was Edward G. Robertson saying how's your Messiah now? God. Oh, good Lord. So anyway, maybe we should thank our super chat hitters one more time.
Well, I'd love to do that, Joe. Except
you're on. Oh, okay, and I can't do it because it wiped it off the board, so I can't really see.
I know that Leon Probitsky and of course Quiet John and
Brandon Doherty and Joe Arabia and Gold Spawn. I got it here. Never mind. For once this thing worked. All right, so. Thank yous to Leon Probitsky, Rich Rothmansky, the chairman Scott Briller, Brandon Doherty, Anthony Spiraccio, Ken Musillo, Gold Spawn. Either way, it was nice. Joe Arabia, Leon Probitsky again, the chairman Scott Briller again, Ken Musillo, a double hit also. And Gold Spawn, who started the whole thing off tonight. So we'll see you on Tuesday, 99.